Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Mark Anthony's Music Picks. Today is episode 156, and for this episode, I've decided to go back and revisit for part two my concept of progressive house sleepers. So, the progressive house genre to me is primarily, as I've said a few times on this channel, 2000 to 2004, maybe a little touch into 2005, but by 2006, progressive class in its classic form was pretty much dead, and I think any progressive house head would agree with that assessment. But condensed into this 2001 really to 2004 period is almost like an infinite amount of awesome dark club oriented progressive house. And for some reason, I guess because there were a lot of these made, this vinyl can still be really cheap to get. So the theme for this is basically progressive house sleepers, kind of like one hit wonders, overlooked wonders, and everything that I've bought in this episode I got for less than $10. Now I know prices can fluctuate on Discogs pretty rapidly, but for the most part everything in here is cheap and, in my opinion, overlooked, and I think that makes it even more fun potentially for somebody else that wants to go and explore these records. I can say over the last year, I've been buying a lot of progressive house because the prices of new vinyl have just gotten so high, $14, $15, $16. I saw, this isn't progressive house, but I saw just randomly, I saw a Mark Romboy record, I think for a single 12-inch for $25 on Juno. So obviously that's prohibitively stupid. And then when you compare these older progressive house records that are 4 stars, in some cases legitimate 5-star records, and you're getting them for $5, still sealed, near mint, old store backstock, it's like no contest. This is like resurrecting the hobby of just being a collector, grabbing a record, playing it, not worrying if you scratched it or maybe I dropped it. It's not the end of the world when you're working with $4 records. And if anything happens to it, you can get another one. So that being said, I have five progressive house sleepers that I wanted to go through with you today. Because they're sleepers, I don't have a ton to say about these artists because like in most cases, nobody even knows who the hell these people are. I mean, the people that made the record know who they are, and the people running the labels know who made the records, but those people are all scattered about. They're probably doing some kind of other work at this point. So it's kind of like these little flashes in the pan that had a moment of genius and then disappeared. That's just how it goes in dance music sometimes. So let's get started with my 5 picks. My first is this one on a label that I'd never heard of before, but it's got some cool cover art. This is Red Ant Records, and it's called Red Ant, I guess because it has a red ant on the label. This guy looks like he means business, right? He's got his two little pinchers there. If he's gonna do any damage, it's right there with those. But the the track actually does some damage too. Now there's 2 tracks on here. Oh, actually, let me talk about the artist first. So it says Bones and Baez, right? So for me, I'm thinking, oh, Frankie Bones made progressive house? No, he didn't. Frankie Bones likes breaks. And Baez made progressive house? No, it's not Eddie Baez. It's some other Baez. But here they paired up for one of their 2 EPs that they've ever released. The other one is on Red Ant, and it's called Mando. I don't know what that word means or what that title means, but I picked this number 1 just because the track, the original mix is just sick. I mean, when I was talking about a cheap 4 to 5 star record, I think this would fit the criteria. I'm not going to give this a 5. I would give it maybe like a 4 1/4, something like that, 4.25. But I got it for $4. So again, the quality to price ratio is really looking good here. And when I listen to this, I mean, it's the original mix is really hooky. I'll admit the track on the B side kind of stinks. I don't like that. It was just kind of like a miss. But in the original mix, this record came out in 2000. You'll hear hints of tribal, like it kind of has a tribal progressive touch to it, but not anything near Chus and Ceballos or anything like that. It's just like the chunk of rhythm is in the background. It has a cool vocal sample of a girl saying "feel." It just kind of carries the note out. And mixed in with there are some of the maybe like cliched but typical progressive house sounds. I just thought it stood out because a lot of the 2000 records that you hear, they kind of miss, or they have a little bit of whackness in their elements. Like, it's like if they just got rid of this and that and replaced it with these other two sounds that are better, like the track would be good. So I get that a lot when I listen to 2000 records. But to me, this one by Bones and Baez is a little bit ahead of its time. It actually sounds like an '02 record or an '03 record that was released in 2000. So this is Cat Mando, and I hope you enjoy it. Next up is this cool orange title, which came out on TuneIn Records. I have other TuneIn releases. The one that comes to mind is the Mark Shimon versus Third Degree Dark Feeling. That's a great record that's also on TuneIn. And here we have Thomas Penton releasing his track called Cliffhanger. Now, to me, Thomas Penton is one of, you can almost buy every Thomas Penton record, or you should at least sample it because he's really good. To me, he brings like a high energy, almost electro tinged, like just proto electro, not like cliched 05, 06 electro, but there was always like an electro-ness to his progressive house, and he tended to work with higher energy levels. So if you broke the progressive house spectrum up on a scale of 1 to 10, I would give a Thomas Penton record like a solid 8 in most regards. And if you like to play your progressive house sets at like 128, 130, maybe even up to 132 if you want to get a little bit crazier back in the day, like the high energy guys liked Thomas Penton tracks. And no, I'm not faulting any of that. For me, I actually picked the James Niche track, which is on the A side of this, and you can see James Niche. I don't know who James Niche is, and that's what I was saying at the beginning of this episode. I'm like, I have no idea who these guys are. I don't know how many tracks he made, but on this one, he made just like a really solid, like kind of softened up remix. Like I said, Thomas Penton's like an 8 out of 10 energy. The James Niche is like a 5 or a 6, and for some reason, when I was listening to this, it flashed me back to the time that I saw Sasha play at Emerald City in 2005, where he just played like crazy, not crazy, but just like really high quality progressive for like 5 or 6 hours straight in Philadelphia. And I remember the feeling, because they brought in extra sound, I remember the feeling of those kick drums and how it almost like carried you to the point where you didn't feel like the kick drum was assaulting you. It was more like it was lifting you up and putting energy into your legs. And I had that same feeling. I was listening to the James Niche this week, and every time that the sweeping synth starts to come in, There's something about the kick drum. I think it's like a well-selected, well-tuned kick drum that just kind of meshes in with the rest of the track. There's something about that kick, and like I said, the gentle sweepingness of the synths that just made me feel like I was back on that dance floor in '05 with Sasha. So I'm extremely low odds that Sasha played this track during his set, but I think it's more of the vibe that it brings. This is a great example of just classic, kind of sleepy, progressive that you would maybe overlook maybe on a first listen, but if it were on a mixed compilation and you listen to the CD over and over again, I think this would be one that you would come back to and say, yeah, maybe I should buy that one. For my next release, I mixed in kind of a weird one here. This is a weird record. First of all, I mean, starting out, the artist's name is an odd spelling, Tszpn. I think it would just be pronounced Tszpn, right? And maybe some of the letters are silent in there. I'm going to call it Tszpn. And the track is called Solar System. This is like the promo or test version of this release. There's a more official looking release. I got this from my friend Rodney that lives in Philadelphia, and we met through Discogs. He's unloading a lot of his progressive house, so I was able to get this basically in like brand new near mint condition for like $7. So like I said, this is why I love buying progressive house, because you can take chances and maybe something surprises you, maybe something disappoints you when you finally get it. But if you do get disappointed, you're out $7. You're not out $25 trying to buy something from Juno. Like I pretty much give up on Juno. They can kiss my behind at this point. Anyway, so the track Solar System here. Yes, this is progressive house. It's really hard to pin down. I think the track centers around a dark droning bass that gives it a very ominous feeling. To me, this kind of seems like it was created by somebody that maybe messes with hallucinogenics like mushrooms or acid or something like that. It just has a very oddball vibe to it. And if you listen to, I think the percussion in here really stands out amongst the dark drone. There's at least 2 drums that are used in here that are more drums that would be out of a drum kit that a band would play with. This is like pulling out of left field, but for minimal and tech house people, if you're familiar with the artist Margaret Dygas, who releases on Perlon, she has a release called Invisible Circles. That's one of my favorite Perlon records of all time. And both sides of Invisible Circles, the A and the B, have like funky drums. Like, yeah, they're funky. And that same like boom bap kind of funk is incorporated into this track here. There's also other more rapid fire percussion elements that are unique. Simple in their design, but just with I think with like a little bit of stereo and reverb put on some of the more rapid fire percussion elements, all kind of brings this together into some kind of like warm, dark, atmospheric, brooding monster. I mean, this track is really big. And for my fourth pick, I have an artist that I know absolutely nothing about. This artist is named Suffix. I was looking briefly on Discogs, no clue who Suffix is. Maybe there's some clues actually here. Yeah, it says it's written and produced by Jonathan Ojeda. I just looked at this now for the first time. Never heard of that guy before. He released this track called Mind Gaps in 2003 on a label called Tszpn. Here's the front of the cover. To me, this is almost like progressive house written by an Australian, or I shouldn't say that, but more representative of like an Australian Aboriginal vibe. I picked it out because I thought it was unique that back in 2003 they thought to use a didgeridoo. So there's a didgeridoo type element in the background. Just like the last record that I was reviewing, the kick drum on it is really nice and kind of tight. And even in the intro where it's just some of the tribal nature and the tribal percussion of the record, the kick drum hits really nice. So I don't have a ton to say about this other than I got it brand new, untouched for $3. And if you like anything that involves a didgeridoo, if you like vortex techno in the flavor of Donato Dazzi or some of the more recent incarnations of vortex techno on Hypnus, I think this would be a really nice progressive house throwback. So again, this is Suffix with their track called Mind Gaps, and this is the original mix. Oh, and before I cut away, I just want to acknowledge that there's an Infusion remix, the classic and Infusion makers of Girls Can Be Cruel, on the B side, and I also thought the Infusion was at least a solid 4 stars. So again, 4 stars and up, all around value on this. Suffix Mind Gaps. And my fifth and final pick for you, I saved the best for last because I want my viewers to watch all the way until the end of my videos, ideally. Here's a record that I discovered by way of my friend Ryan just in the past 2 weeks. Ryan lives up in New York, and we were hanging out together with the intention of we went to see Jonathan Peters up in New York at a bar called Mulcahy's, which was an Irish pub, and that gig actually ended up being a really big disappointment for me. That was rough, but it was almost like hanging out before we went out was more fun than actually going to the venue because the sound system was just so busted. I couldn't take it. But while Ryan and I were hanging out and pre-gaming for maybe 2 or 3 hours before the party started, we were jamming at his house, and he just kind of, I think actually I randomly pulled this record off of his shelf and just gave it a spin. It's by an artist named Muzo, M-U-Z-O, and the track is called The Mac. And man, as soon as Ryan dropped this on his turntable, I mean, this is 5 stars. Everything else in this episode, maybe you could say is somewhere between 4 and 4.5 stars, but this track is effing perfect. This track is perfect. Just listen to this. Listen to it in the first 2 minutes. You'll know that you are about to behold a 5-star progressive house record. I don't know who this dude is. I don't know where his inspiration came from. After I discovered this record, I went and sifted through his catalog, which I think is 6 or 7 original productions, no remixes that I noticed, unless maybe he remixes under an alias. But this is an example of a really highly talented producer that just came did his thing for 2 or 3 years, put some records out, and then just flittered away, and he's gone. But he dropped this track called the Mac here. It's called the Mac because it samples a 1973 movie called The Mac, where it basically has a character that's, I guess, a pimp, and he's describing like his pimp tactics, and that's the little like vocal cutaway that you get during the breakdown here. But this is a really truly epic record. I got it for, I think, $7 near mint, and I was looking on Discogs earlier today, and there's another copy sitting there for $3. So if you like this sample, which anybody that loves progressive house should, I would say just go and buy that other $3 copy. Don't let it sit there, because this thing is an absolute gem.
Dig it?
All right, that's all for my Progressive House Sleepers Part 2. I have so much more ammunition in regards to this genre in this time period that I'll probably come back and do some more of these in the future, maybe a year from now. But in the meantime, enjoy these picks and feel free to comment down below. Let me know how you feel about them, and let me know if you have any recommendations related to any of the artists or labels that I mentioned here. That's all for today, and take care.